This piece of filmmaking advice is literally going to change the way you think and go about your filmmaking process. My name is Sarah Kogan. I am a designer and visual producer for film and television, and I champion filmmakers by helping them craft cinematic cohesion. So we're going to talk about something that's really near and dear to my heart. That is a piece of thinking that I came up with that I think will revolutionize the way that you think about your filmmaking process. Before we dive in, here's a fact that all my friends know. I used to train in mixed martial arts in the study of Filipino stick fighting, which was the precursor to then getting to fight with a machete. But don't worry, I am a very friendly human and don't really utilize those skills. Let's dive into what is this piece of information that is literally going to change the way that you go about your filmmaking process. So this life-changing thing that I'm talking about is this signature concept of mine called the 4 storytelling layers in film. You see, films all have 4 storytelling layers, and they all affect the way we go about the process of filmmaking at that layer. So the first storytelling layer is our script. It's our foundation, right? It's going to tell us what the story arc is. Although, I've done films where in the editing room, right, we've swapped scenes around because for the story, it makes more sense, right? So it's our blueprint, right? Our scripts are our blueprint. And what we learn at that storytelling layer that is unique and specific to the script, to that first storytelling layer, is the type of story it is. Is it a rom-com? Is it a drama? Is it a thriller or a suspense movie, right? That is the only way that we can learn that about any film and any story is how it is in the script level. And some people will call those genres. And for my purposes, I'm actually calling the next level where we see genre as it pertains to design and as it pertains to world building. So if that doesn't tell you where we're going, the second storytelling layer in film is all about world building. The 4-dimensionality of the world that we're telling, right? So physically, the 3-dimensional space in which we are creating with costumes, hair, makeup, production design, right? Our props, all the physical elements that are in front of the camera, as well as the 4th dimension, as I'm calling it, which is sound and music. The sound design of a world and its musical composition are very important to our filmmaking process, as many of us already know. So that's why I call the world building area this kind of 4-dimensional space, right? We're going to literally create this physical environment in which our cast and crew is going to live in for the duration of the filming process. Right? We're going to come, we're going to spend our days on set, all of that fun stuff. That second storytelling layer is all about genre. So is it a sci-fi film? Is it fantasy? Is it a heightened reality or just a contemporary world? And I'll tell you that when it comes to telling stories, this world building piece, even when we're telling a contemporary film set today, we are still building a world, right? There are different elements that we're not going to see. We're going to choose to utilize different colors and textures that are not a part of our everyday world. Or maybe they are a part of the everyday world, right? But we're condensing them, or we're containing and confining them into the parameters that serve our story. It's setting up the context for the story we're telling, because that's what design does. Design sets the context for us. For more information on how design sets the context of our stories, check out my next video that's at the end of this one. It'll give you all the insights on how design sets context for our films. That's our second storytelling layer. Now for our third storytelling layer, which is the filmmaking process. We're going to go on to set. We're going to bring all the actors, get our sets together, right? We've gathered all our supplies and our resources in the world building aspect of what we're doing. And now we're going to shoot our film, right? And so we're literally going to take this 3-dimensional space that we've created and we're going to compress it into a 2-dimensional image, what we see on the screen. In that process is what I like to call the revelation of form. How are we seeing and experiencing the body and the characters and the world around them as it relates to the audience through this beautiful thing we call the camera lens and our screen? That is all about how does storytelling happen at that level. It's cinematography, and for the purpose of my work, I talk about it as revelation of form. versus cinematography. The reasons why I purposely have chosen to use different words, for example, revelation of form instead of cinematography, is because it allows us then to break away from our preconceived notions of what that means and start looking at it from a new perspective. And as it relates to our storytelling layers, it allows us to see the interplay in terms of how are we creating this experience for our audience to understand the world. The first storytelling layer is, again, our story. The second storytelling layer is our world building. We're setting up context. We're setting up dynamics through design that can create conflict, that can create harmony between characters or between them and the worlds. And then this third storytelling layer is then about creating our relationships to the audience and creating conflict through composition, right? That is what we're then doing with the revelation of form of the third storytelling layer. And once we've gathered all of that footage, once we've completed that process, we then move on to the fourth storytelling layer, which then layers on another bit of information, and that is the editing and assemblage process, where we're gonna gather all our footage, we're gonna gather all our sounds and our audio files, we're gonna gather our music, and we're gonna put it together to create our final film. In this process, it's about creating juxtapositions and relationships to ultimately take us to where we want to go with the story. It's about taking one revelation of form and juxtaposing it against another revelation of form to create meaning. That's the editing process, right? If we're looking our relationships of shot to shot, our relationships from sequence to sequence as we go through telling this story. If you're sitting there going, I'd like to learn more about film design and how that helps me tell my stories, guess what? I have a workshop just on that. So just go in the links down below. You'll get all the information you need there. To recap what we just talked about, the four storytelling layers are as follows. You have your first storytelling layer, and that is your script, right? It's your story type. What kind of story are we telling? The first storytelling layer is the only place that we can find out what type of story it is. What is the point of the story? Where are the central pieces? And everything from there builds off of that place. Then we have our second storytelling layer, which is the actual physical creation of the world, whether that's through costumes, hair, makeup, or production design, sound, and music, right? Where really, how is this world created? And even like the atmospherics of lighting as well, which I forgot to mention. But light has so much to do with the way we see and experience a world. It's a very important part of our filmmaking process and a very important part of the design process as well. How are we building that world? And then that tells us, are we in a sci-fi world, fantasy world, heightened reality, contemporary world, period world? Where are we? What is this genre of the world that we're in? And then from there, we go into our filmmaking process, which is the actual filming of what we've created and where we're looking at revelation of form. How are we seeing and experiencing the body through the camera? How are we experiencing the world around the characters through the camera? And as that relates to this audience that has maybe never seen or experienced these characters before. And so how we choose to show them will help them to then understand the story. And then the last piece in our storytelling layers is the editing process, right? How are we choosing to create the edit through pacing, through the way that we cut between different shots and transition between them? All of those aim to tell a story, all of those choices. So you can see how every storytelling layer builds upon itself to then create our final film. By understanding the four storytelling layers in film, we can then see how the different layers start to tell story and bring meaning to the films that we're making, which allows us to break down the process of filmmaking into manageable chunks to create a film that truly exceeds our expectations and our wildest dreams. If you found this helpful and you would love more about filmmaking and all these kind of design world tips that I talk about, subscribe to my channel below and like the video so other filmmakers like yourself can find this great information. Thanks so much for spending time with me today. Keep filming your stories and shooting your dreams. I'll see you next time.